This episode of Salmonella Academy is brought to you by Skillshare. Hey kid. Yeah, you. I just got off the phone with the big man upstairs, and he told me that I need to clear a few things up around here. So without further ado, here's 10 pieces of malarkey that you might still be spreading. Number 1. Nobody was ever burned to death at the Salem witch trials. Of the accused, 15 died in prison, 19 were hanged, and 1 was squished to death. That last one is way more interesting than any cremation, by the way. Dude was a badass. His name was Giles Corey. He was 81 years old and so done with the town of Salem's garbage that he wouldn't even dignify the trial with a plea. So the town stuck in between 2 boards and stacked rocks on top of him in an effort to draw out a confession. But every time they tried to get something out of him, all he would say was, "More weight." This went on for 3 solid days until he finally died, never giving any indication as to whether or not he was a witch. One can only wonder. Number 2, the OG Buddha wasn't the obese guy. That's Budai, a Chinese folk character meant to represent Maitreya, aka future Buddha. Now this shirt is double sad. Number 3, Buddha wasn't a god either. He was just a guy named Gautama. Now this shirt is triple sad. Number 4. Ever heard of a vomitorium? Turns out no, it's not a place where Roman nobles would go to make room for more pheasant spleen and lobster eyelids. It's just a big entranceway to the coliseums that hordes of peasants would spew out of. Number 5. Washington never cut down a cherry tree in his youth. I don't get this one at all. Apparently it's supposed to paint the man in a good light somehow. It's like, Tyler, what the hell happened while we were gone? Where's the tree in the front yard? Oh yeah, that was me. Got bored. Just felt like vandalizing something, you know? Hey, what about my honest character? Number 6, the pyramids weren't actually built by slaves. These workers were respected members of society. They ate meat and worked in 3-month shifts, and even got to be buried right next to the tomb after their death. Matter of fact, that's more than we can say for the people working on man's greatest achievements today. If I spent years of my life helping to build the space station, you're damn right I'd want the Salmonella Memorial Corpse Receptacle floating along right next to it. That would be amazing. Number 7, the Great Wall of China is not the only man-made object visible from space. I don't know where you dipshits got this one from. First of all, there's no way you could see it with the unaided eye. The wall is like 30 meters thick at most, while the distance to outer space is generally recognized to be 100 kilometers up, known as the Kármán line. To give some perspective, that's like me holding up a standard-sized guitar pick from across the entire length of a football field and asking you what color it is. Also, there are plenty of man-made objects that are way bigger in terms of local surface area than the Great Wall, so even if it was visible, there's no way it would be the only one. Number 8, you might have heard this one before. You know, Hitler was a jerk and all, but hey, he made the Autobahn, so at least he was efficient. Actually, Hitler didn't create the Autobahn. It was already there. He just helped expand it into newer territory. In a similar vein, Mussolini didn't make the trains run on time, with most of Italy's infrastructure repairs happening before his rise to power in 1922, and even then they weren't nearly as punctual as he'd like you to believe. So unfortunately, you're gonna have to find something else to like about these fascists. Like Hitler's elegant way of speaking. Or the way Mussolini says spaghetti. Paschetti! Number 9, Iron Maidens weren't actual torture devices used in medieval times. Basically what happened is, some archaeologists in the 1800s saw an old metal coffin and some spikes, and said, yo, wouldn't it be wildin' if we put these things up in here, so that way if someone goes in it, they get poked in their bits? You are a sick man, Cornelius. I like it. Into the museum it goes. At least Iron Maiden was real. They were as real as it gets. Still are. Don't you forget it. Number 10, Einstein never failed math. He had mastered both integral and differential calculus by the age of 15. 99% chance this one was just made up to make glue eaters feel better about themselves. Well, congratulations, Dimitri. Looks like you failed pre-algebra for the 3rd time. Brady still can't graduate. Well, hey, that means I'm still on par with famous smart science man, so yeah, worship me. So it just goes to show that we've all got a lot to learn about the world around us. That's why you need to go to Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with over 20,000 classes in technology, design, business, and more. Premium membership gives you unlimited access to high-quality classes on must-know topics so you can improve your skills, unlock new opportunities, and do the work you love. They've got great courses in graphic design and animation, which I've clearly already mastered. I mean, check this out. but I'm sure you could get a lot of use out of them. You can also learn plenty of more recreational skills, like how to solve a Rubik's Cube, or how to play chess really well. Join the millions of students already learning on Skillshare today, with a special offer just for my viewers, where you can get 2 months of Skillshare completely free. To sign up, go to skl.sh/samo. Again, go to skl.sh/samo to get 2 months of unlimited access to over 20,000 classes for free. Act now for this special offer and start learning today. Anyway, till next time, I'm Salmonella, and thank you for watching.
They're made of lies. See? Listen, why do fruit exist? For a delicious, nutritious snack for humans and animals alike to enjoy? You know, you didn't have to go throwing him into the sun like that. You're next, Susan! How did you know my name? I created you. Anyway, as most of you probably know, fruit are a thing because nature figured out, hey, if you put a little bit of deliciousness around your seed, it'll convince some idiot bird or something to carry your baby off to faraway lands, right? But then humans showed up and were like, hey, that's pretty nifty. Listen, is it cool if we selectively breed you for thousands of years to give you horrific deformities to crank up that whole deliciousness part a couple hundred notches? Alright, cool. Let's take a look at bananas, specifically the Cavendish variety that we all know and love. On the inside, we got like 2% seeds, 93% delectable banana meat, and 5% that brown part at the bottom that your mom says is perfectly fine to eat but you still don't trust. Great for a snack. Terrible for reproducing efficiently. Meanwhile, check out the thing on the right here. That's Musa acuminata, one of the suspected ancestors of today's nanners. Much smaller and jam-packed with seeds, with just enough flesh in there to make it worth some smelly primate's time to crack open a yellow one with the boys. Here's another wild type banana, Musa balbesiana. Less sweet, way starchier, harder to get into, hella seeds, same shit different day really. But hey, if you stick that boy in the ground, you've got an okay chance of making a new banana tree. You bury a modern banana, all you're gonna end up with is a dirty banana. And not that one club in Miami, I mean an actual dirty banana. That's because, like a lot of cultivated fruit, culinary bananas are so inbred and malformed that they can't produce offspring even if they wanted to. So, word of advice for you men out there, if ever a lady points out how poorly endowed you are, just show her this JPEG. She'll say, wow, I didn't realize it was so potent and fertile. You really opened my eyes, thank you. Bananas aren't the only piece of produce to follow this pattern though, not by a long shot. For example, take the watermelon. According to Monsanto, everybody's favorite corporation, the first evidence of human cultivation of the watermelon dates back to Egypt around 5,000 years ago. Back then, they were only 2 inches in diameter, around the size of a tennis ball. The flesh was supposedly tough and bitter, much like that of a tennis ball. Of course, just as the growth of a delicious green baby takes time, so too did the evolution of the modern watermelon. In fact, even as late as the mid-1600s, watermelons looked way different from what we have today, as shown by this painting by Giovanni Stanchi. Notice the thicker rind, the larger seeds, and the weird segmentation on the inside. Definitely a cooler still life subject, but ultimately inferior as a summertime snack. How about vegetables? Tell me, do you enjoy cabbage, Brussels sprouts, kale, collard greens, broccoli, or cauliflower? I mean, I guess I like broccoli and cauliflower. The rest are kind of gross though. Wrong! All 6 of these vegetables are actually the same thing! That means you like them all! That's not how that works. I'll be good. Anyway, these veggies are all just cultivars of the same species, Brassica oleracea, otherwise known as wild cabbage. Every part of the plant is edible to some extent, but there's not much of it to go around. So a bunch of different people throughout history said, alright, what if we just take one specific part of the plant and go fucking insane with it? And that's what they did. Those who bred for giant leaves got kale, going for huge dense flower buds gets you broccoli, juicy engorged lateral leaf buds equal Brussels sprouts, etc. Speaking of segues, let's check out eggplants. The OG eggplant was first domesticated in India, where it can still be found in the wild today. It looks nothing like an eggplant though, they actually resemble little green berries the size of grapes. The only thing it seems to have in common with the classic purple eggplant is how little both of them have in common with an egg. However, if we add the RGB percentage values of their color and merge their shapes, we do get what looks approximately like an egg, so I guess that solves that mystery. This whole transformation really is a testament to man's greatness though. That's like starting out with a frog and selectively breeding them until you end up with Grimace from McDonald's lore. Speaking of which, did you know Grimace used to be evil and have 4 arms? This is a real thing. I'd like to think that when they lopped off his extra limbs, all his evil energy went with him, and now there's just 2 plump purple cylinders scampering around the countryside waiting to pull unsuspecting kids under ball pits, never to be seen again. That's just my McDonald's headcanon though. Anyway, back to whatever we were talking about. Next is corn, or sorry, maize. I call it corn like a normal person. If it was supposed to be called maize, these would be called mazes. Obviously, that's like the perfect opportunity, but they're not, so put an etymological sock in it. Or stocking. Anyway, I was totally expecting old corn to look like those baby corns you find in Chinese food and literally nowhere else. Turns out those actually are just baby corns. One suspected ancestor of corn is known as teosinti, which looks like this. Gee whiz, Sam, that sure does look like garbage. Good eye, Billy. That's because it was garbage. Whereas modern corn has a kernel count in the hundreds, teosinti only has 5 to 12, with each one being encased in a hard shell that's basically impossible to get into short of boiling it or chipping a tooth. The fact that people decided to domesticate it in the first place makes sense once you realize that most grains are basically the same thing. But honestly, that just makes me wish people figured out how to turn a piece of wheat into a big chunk of whatever to gnaw on. This whole thing disappointed me so much that I actually moved it to the top of my list of reasons not to visit the Mayans if I ever get a time machine. Nonetheless, as you can see, human endeavor can accomplish amazing things. And just as a few thousand years of selective breeding can turn this into this, a few hours of learning a week can turn you into, you know, a more talented and interesting version of you. And what better way to do that than with Skillshare.com? Skillshare is an online learning community with over 22,000 classes in technology, design, business, and more. Premium membership gives you unlimited access to high-quality classes on must-know topics so you can improve your skills, unlock new opportunities, and do the work you love. They've got great courses in just about any creative pursuit you can think of. I used to be totally musically illiterate till I took this course. Then I made this. What about food? You like food? Of course you do. You'd be dead if you didn't. With Skillshare, you can make your own macaroons, fresh pasta, spring rolls, whatever. Join the millions of students already learning on Skillshare today with a special offer just for my viewers, where you can get 2 months of Skillshare for free. To sign up, go to skl.sh/samo2. Again, for those in the back, go to skl.sh/samo2. to get 2 months of unlimited access to over 22,000 classes for free. Act now for this special offer and start learning today. Anyway, till next time, I'm Sam and Ella, and thank you for watching. Mentorship. What the
Hey kids, guess what? You could be a freak of nature and not even know it. Yep, not every deformity is visible to the untrained eye. Today, we're going to talk about a few physical defects that you, the listener, might have. First is situs inversus. So situs inversus is when a person is born with some or all of their organs mirrored along the vertical axis. This can range from a heart that's on the right instead of the left to the entire body cavity being flipped around. The condition is pretty rare, affecting about 1 in every 10,000 people. According to Wikipedia, plenty of people live their lives with this condition without knowing about it. Considering that even little kids know that their heart is supposed to be on the left, I find this a little hard to believe, but who knows. At any rate, the first doctor visit where you find all this out sure would be interesting. Whoa, I think your testicles are on backwards. What? Hold on, maybe I'm just holding them weird. Let me just, no, yeah, they're definitely on backwards. I don't follow. It's not that hard a concept. The left one's on the right and the right one's on the left, that's all. Okay? Does that mean anything? Well, I mean, I wouldn't want to be the guy with the backwards nutsack, but that's just me. What do you mean? Just, you know, kind of weird, isn't it? What is weird about it? How are they different? Can you see it? Can you feel it? Is it dangerous? Look, I'm a doctor, not a cosmetologist, alright? Next is bell clapper deformity. This is a condition that affects 1 out of every 125 males. So in a normal nutsack, the nuts are anchored to the sac in a certain way that limits their mobility. But if you have bell clapper deformity, this anchor isn't present, meaning your nads are free to swing around much more independently than normal. Being that we, as males, don't often compare our scrotal dynamics with other men, most people aren't aware of their deformity. At least not at first. However, having free-floating testes comes with a significantly higher chance of suffering from testicular torsion, which is where your sperm tube gets all twisted around as a result of rigorous exercise or other mechanical means. This condition is extremely painful and oftentimes requires a visit to the hospital in order to prevent that nut from literally dying from hypoxia. Wait a minute, these aren't on backwards, they're just all twisted up. What? Fix them? Yeah, I'm trying. Try harder. Hey, you ever try to untangle a pair of earbuds through a plastic bag? This is like that except sweatier. Cut me some slack, alright? Don't get your balls in a twist. More of a twist. Next is the accessory spleen. So most of us have at least heard of the spleen. For those of you that don't know a lot about it, basically it's a softball-sized organ right around here that helps out your bloodstream and immune system. But apparently, 1 out of every 10 people have not 1, but 2 spleens. Sadly, the second spleen isn't another full-sized organ, but rather a little enclosed ball of spleen tissue about the size of a peanut M&M. Since it is self-enclosed, it's technically considered another organ. But because of its small size, it's not all that beneficial to have one or anything. It's just kind of there. Hey, I haven't seen you around before. Are you new on campus? Oh, yeah, I just got here a couple days ago. Well, hey man, welcome to UCLA. If you want, I can... Wrangle Rock! What is that? It's a good show! Oh, that's Toby. He's my accessory. Do you listen to The Offspring? Is it talking to me? Do you listen to The Offspring? Well, I mean, I used to when I was younger, not so much nowadays. Well, but... you're gonna go far, kid. I'm gonna go now. Do you think he got the reference? Yeah, Toby, I'm sure he did. Finally, we have fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. The only reason I'm including this one is because of something that happened in health class during my freshman year of high school. Our teacher was telling us all about how you should never drink during pregnancy. She also said that between 2 and 5% of people in the United States have some form of FASD. Then she goes, looking around the room, I do see a couple people that have the distinguishing facial features. Not gonna name names, of course. And then she just continued on with her lesson as if she didn't just drop a huge bombshell on all of us. So needless to say, this scared the shit out of me. Cause although I consider myself a little bit on the intellectual side, for all I know, I could have been lined up to be the next Einstein, and then my would-be genius brain just got Jaeger bombed into a merely above average one. So as soon as I got home, I pulled up a chart that showed all the distinguishing facial features for FASD, and compared it in the mirror. Thankfully, my philtrum was distinct and my upper lip was plump, so I'm in the clear, as I know now. Statistically speaking though, there's a good chance that at least a few of the moms of the people watching this video are not the angels that they make themselves out to be. So, you know, food for thought. It really is a curse though, learning about this chart here, because the features are subtle enough that those who are affected still look normal to the average person. But once you're on the lookout for them, next thing you know, you're on Facebook, your friend posted pictures of her kid, all the comments are like, oh my god, he's so cute, what a perfect little guy, and you're the only person there who knows otherwise. Anyway, that's all for today. Till next time, I'm Salmonella, and thank you for watching. Hey kids, I've been told by a lot of people that there's nothing more exciting than the metric system. They may have a point, but I can still prove them wrong. Today, we're going to talk about some specific lesser-known units of measurement. First is the Schmidt Pain Index. Now, anybody could tell you that getting stung by a bug tends to hurt, but just how much does one sting hurt compared to another? Are yellow jackets worse than hornets? Are fire ants worse than honeybees? Nobody in the world of science knew for sure. That is, until a young upstart by the name of Justin Schmidt decided to boldly go where no entomologist has gone before. But how did he plan to quantify the level of pain caused by different insect stings? Well, it went something like this. Alright, honeybee. Zzz, ow, god, that hurt. I'll give that like a 2. Next, paper wasp. Zzz, okay, that's like a 3. Next, let's try bullet ant. Jesus Christ, Mary Mother of Satan's left nipple, it's like my hand is made entirely out of urethras, and each and every one is having a red-hot catheter put in and ripped out 5 times every second. My very being is on fire, my only desire left is for death himself to bless me with sweet relief. I'll give that a 4. No. 4+. In all seriousness though, I'm pretty sure the index is meant to be logarithmic, like earthquake magnitudes. So just like a magnitude 7 earthquake is 10 times as powerful as a magnitude 6, a bullet ant sting causes 100 times as much pain as a honeybee. In total, Schmidt cataloged 78 different species of the order Hymenoptera, which includes ants, bees, and wasps. You can tell a man is really dedicated to his job when, after getting stung by 77 insects, he says to himself, you know what? That wasn't enough. I need one more creature to inject its venom into me, and only then will this list be complete. I guess you could say he just really gave a Schmidt. Nah. Next is the Waffle House Index. So for those of you that didn't know, the Waffle House is one of the most resilient establishments in the world. Whereas most restaurants would simply close down in the event of, say, a hurricane, Waffle House just goes from their normal mode to disaster response mode, following extensive protocol that allows that location to keep serving customers in spite of low food supply or even a power outage. In response to this business practice, FEMA came up with what is known as the Waffle House Index, which is a system to easily assess how badly an area is damaged by a natural catastrophe. If the Waffle House is fully open, they're in the green, which means things are basically fine. If the Waffle House is using their low supply menu, you're in the yellow, which means that the area is almost certainly mid-disaster. Finally, if you're in the red, that means the Waffle House is either closed or gone. Now that's a sign of some real nuclear zombie holocaust type shit going down, so if you're not already dead, you should probably vacate the area. Most engineers could tell you that, structurally speaking, the triangle is the strongest of all shapes. But I believe that there's one shape that's even stronger. Godspeed, Waffle House. Next we have the APGAR score. So the APGAR score is a rating system used by hospitals to determine how healthy a newborn baby is on a scale from 0 to 10. It's called APGAR based on its 5 criteria, which include appearance, pulse, grimace, activity, and respiration. And each of these is rated on a scale from 0 to 2 to get your final score. Personally, I think this set of standards is a little flawed. Here's an example. Well, it's completely blue, and it doesn't really want to move at all, but it's got a really fast heartbeat, and it's screaming really loudly. I'd give this baby like a 6 out of 10. That's good enough. So in response, I've invented my own rating system. It's called the Ragu score. R is for reflexes. It's common knowledge that if you hold any healthy baby by its feet and then drop it, it'll always land upright. If your baby can't do that, that's a sure sign that it's defective. A is for abnormality. If your baby seems weird, that's typically a good indicator that it's weird. G still stands for grimace, just like in the APGAR test, only instead of looking at the baby's facial expression, you just bring Grimace from McDonald's into the room and see how the baby reacts. If it starts crying, that's a good sign, because Grimace is absolutely fucking terrifying. And finally, U is for ugliness, just because that might sway your decision on whether or not you want to keep it. Now, if the baby passes the test, it gets to go home, but if it fails, then it gets shipped off to the factory and made into Ragu, hence the name of the test. Some people might be upset by this fact, but you know what they say, Prego today, Ragu tomorrow. Anyway, that's all for today. Till next time, I'm Sam Manella, and thank you for watching. Today's video has been sponsored by Ragu brand pasta sauce. Like the taste of pureed infants? Then you'll love Ragu pasta sauce. Hey kids, let me tell you about Swiss Miss Instant Hot Chocolate and why their packaging is bullshit. So it comes in a box shaped like this, right? And within the box there are individual bags of hot chocolate arranged like this. Already you can see some of this company's incompetence shining through. There is no reason for their box to be double wide. It is a waste of cardboard. Let me prove it. Here's a top-down view, right? Let's say this side is 8 inches, this side is 2 inches. That adds up to 20 inches of cardboard. If you doubled it up like this, just had the package a single file, that's only 16 inches. It's a waste. And if that weren't bad enough, for some reason, they decide to attach the bags with these tiny paper bridges. So when you go to make your packet of hot chocolate, you have to detach the two bags. That doesn't sound so bad, except for the fact that it's impossible to break them cleanly. Every time, every goddamn time, they tear holes into the sides of the bags. And it's never just one bag either. That would be too simple. It puts holes in both. So either way, you're gonna have to put one back and just live with it leaking powder in the box. It's gotten to the point where I have to employ surgical precision just to avoid getting chocolate dust all over my frickin' house. It would be so simple to avoid too. Even if you really had to have these pointless attachment things, you could at least put little perforations down the center so they break down the middle. School notebooks have been doing it since the 50s, so why, in 2016, has Swiss Miss not discovered the arcane technology of dotted lines? So there's powder everywhere. The cat's looking at you funny because it knows you're pissed off, but at least it's time to enjoy some hot chocolate. You pour your bag into the mug, pour in the hot water, take a sip, and it tastes like piss. Swiss Miss Instant Piss. So you go back to check the box, thinking maybe you did something wrong. The cat starts shaking because it knows what's coming, and that's when you see it. Serving size, 6 ounces. So finally the dam breaks, you unleash a primal roar of sheer fury. The cat shits itself and jumps out the window as you punt kick the Swiss Miss box across the room. The average mug is 12 fluid ounces in volume. Who in God's name only drinks 6 ounces of liquid? So finally, you reach into the box and pull out the desecrated corpse of that other bag from earlier, and you pour it in. Only then can you enjoy your subpar hot beverage properly. This whole system, right? This charade that Swiss Miss puts you through, it's kinda like telling a guy to just jizz with one ball instead of both of them. They're in the same container, and separating them would be difficult. And even if I were to figure out how to do that, 2 does the job better than 1 anyway, so it's pointless. Nowadays, I just fold the packet in half and rip along the seams of both. And maybe that was their intention, but if so, why would you give me the illusion of separability in the first place? It's like Siamese twins. They're joined for no reason and hard as fuck to separate, so I guess I'm just gonna have to live with both. I don't know which is worse, the fact this minor inconvenience was my biggest dilemma all day, or that this inconvenience even exists in the first place. But anyway, I'm Salmonella, and thank you for watching.
Hey kids, remember the plague, malaria, smallpox? Kinda bad, right? Well, guess what? They're peanuts compared to the level of destruction that's been wreaked over the years across the kingdom next door. Today, I'm gonna talk about some of the most interesting diseases to ever strike the world of plants. The most famous one is probably the potato blight. It's a fungus that attacks potatoes. This is what it looks like. On the left, we have a healthy potato, while on the right, we have a blighty one. Notice how this one is noble and robust, like a lion's heart, while the other is shriveled and black, like Betsy DeVos's uterus. You could try to eat it, but it's basically like rotting cork. You wouldn't get very far. So in 1845, Ireland relied a lot on potatoes, right? That's because their soil was dumb and that's the most nutritious thing they could grow. Then the blight came and all their food turned to poo. 1 million starved, 2 million left. They came to America. They brought freckles and these things. Hoity-toity-toy, now we have the Celtics. Next is the chestnut blight, which infects, you guessed it, the elderly. Wait, no, that's shingles. Chestnut blight infects American chestnut trees, which once populated a huge portion of the South and Mid-Atlantic regions of the country. Key word, once. During the early 20th century, the blight arrived, which ended up killing around 4 billion trees over the course of a couple decades. Hey, remember that time 4 billion giant things died inexplicably? Me neither. Nobody does. Let me give some perspective on the situation. Those trees were huge, like 40 meters tall apiece. That means 160 million kilometers of tree was destroyed by this disease. That's long enough to get from the earth to the sun with 10 million kilometers to spare. Here's another. If we take the volume of all these trees, we get 126 billion cubic meters. If we burn that much wood, we get 861 quadrillion joules of energy. That's the amount released by the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Times 10,000. So yeah, kind of a big deal. But who cares, right? Why worry about 4 billion dumb smelly old trees when there's 1,000 whole pandas that need our help? Isn't that right, WWF? You populist scum. Anyway, moving on. This next one is called, get ready, broom rape. I'm serious. Broom rape. Broom rape. Wikipedia, broom rape. Naked broom rape. Imagine if we gave human illnesses names like that. I'm sorry, Sam, but you have urethra cactus. I would just end it right there. Doesn't even matter what the actual symptoms are. Anyway, broom rape is considered a parasitic plant. This is what it does. The seeds of the broom rape will hang out in the soil for years until the roots of a host plant come along. When they do, the broom rape bursts out of its shell and immediately starts leeching off the other organism. Eventually, once they grow enough, they'll breach the surface with these little flowers. Notice, no leaves, no green. Who needs chlorophyll when you're a filthy freeloader, right? These flowers get fertilized and the whole thing starts over. Just one of these guys isn't a big deal to the host. But once you get enough, they have the potential to suck an entire farm dry, causing sweeping crop failure. Pun definitely intended. Next is this one. There's a few different ways you can pronounce it depending on your social standing, ranging from ergit to elgo. Being the disheveled pauper I am, I prefer ergot. Rolls off the tongue, you know. Ergot is a fungus that mainly infects grains like wheat, barley, and especially rye. And it's capable of producing a whole soup of compounds called alkaloids, which can have a variety of effects on the human body. Most of them not fun, mostly spasms and diarrhea, that kind of thing. However, one particular alkaloid called ergotamine structurally resembles LSD and has a similar function when it enters the body. So a medieval peasant would be sitting there, eating a nice loaf of rye bread, just minding his own business. Then all of a sudden, holy shit, I'm blasting out of both ends! My heart's a seizing, my lungs are wheezing, the fucking walls are melting, I can hear Satan's voice, he's telling me to invest in Apple? What does that mean? Why does he want me to buy apples? This would go on for like a day. Sometimes their fingers and toes would fall off, but then they'd be alright. Unless they weren't. Moral of the story, kids, don't eat strange bread. you could trip balls and die. One more thing before we end today's video, I've decided to launch a second channel for all the dumb stuff I think of that doesn't fit the Academy format. It's called Salmonella Vlog. Go check it out. It's in the description. I wrote a slam poem. It's there. Go look. Anyway, that's all for today. Till next time, I'm Salmonella, and thank you for watching.
Hey kids, today I'll be teaching you how to read these things. The symbol is technically known as NFPA 704, but nobody really calls it that. Most people refer to it as a fire diamond, or a safety square, or if you're British, a figmenty crossa tossa, whatever floats your boat. Anyway, when you see the symbol, usually on a door or a container or something, it means there's a hazardous material present, and the numbers and symbols on the diamond give information on exactly how dangerous that material is. So first off, notice the 4 colors, right? Each one represents a different type of hazard. Red is for flammability, because fire and burning things are usually red. Yellow is for chemical reactivity, I guess because chemical reactions involve swapping electrons, and electricity is yellow, sure. Blue is for health hazards because fuck you. And then white is just extra space for other stuff. So the 3 colored diamonds, or if you want to be politically correct, the African American diamonds, each have a number from 0 to 4. And each of these is like a threat level for that category. If the number is 0, it basically means you'd have to be some kind of professional to manage to fuck things up in that fashion. Sand, for example, has a 0 in its flammability. The only time sand burns is when it's wedged in the cracks of your Speedo for too long. However, please note that the health section does not apply to ingestion. For example, motor oil has a blue rating of 0, but that in no way makes it safe to drink. If the number is 1, that means there's a threat present, but you'd still have to be like an advanced level dumbass in order to really find it. Cellulose, the primary chemical found in paper, has a flammability of 1, so don't, hold it over a fire for a while, and you'll be fine. 2 is where things start being kind of a big deal. Capsaicin, the chemical that makes peppers spicy, has a health risk of 2. You finish chopping your jalapenos, and then you go touching your jalapenis. It's not gonna kill you or nothing, but it's gonna mess your day up for sure. If you see a 3, that's when you know you gotta watch out. Gasoline, it's got a flammability of 3, and we all know gasoline. You see gasoline walking by, you better take the cigarette out of your mouth, get the static off your clothes, fix your hair, make yourself presentable, don't make eye contact. That's the only way to keep yourself safe. And then 4 is the highest number on the scale. If you see a 4, the best thing to do is just start walking backwards, because if you're close enough to read that 4, chances are you're not where you need to be. Nitroglycerin has a reactivity of 4. If you soak a tissue in nitroglycerin and give it to your friend to sneeze in, that sneeze will result in his entire goddamn face getting blown off. So yeah, 4s are nothing to sneeze at. Literally. Now let's move on to the bottom bit. Unlike me, this diamond isn't just a big white waste of space. This is the spot for any extra warnings you need to know about. Most of them are pretty self-explanatory, like radiation, or biohazard, or gaze, so I'll just go through a few that aren't as easy to interpret. Take a look at this one. Unless you hear faint mooing while you're reading it, chances are it doesn't mean what you think. OX is short for oxidizer, which is basically something that produces oxygen when exposed to heat. This doesn't sound so bad until you realize that heat plus oxygen rarely ends well for most fuels in the vicinity. If you see this one, it means white people aren't allowed to touch the material. Just kidding. White people are allowed to do whatever they want. It actually means don't mix with water, or else it could explode or multiply or something. Ese means simple asphyxiant, referring to gases like helium. It basically means that while this gas isn't poisonous, it's also, not air. So if you breathe it for too long, you will still die. Alright kids, so now that you know all the ins and outs of these things, let me give you a little quiz. On the left we got a bunch of things, and on the right we have a bunch of fire diamonds. Pause the video now and see if you can match them up correctly. All done? Here are the answers. So now you know all about NFPA 704. Till next time, I'm Salmonella, and thank you for watching.
Hey kids, today I've got another character study for you all, a man known as Zhang. In 1881, he was born into poverty in the Shandong region of China. His father was a head shaver. Not a barber, mind you. If a head shaver's a barber, then a ditch digger's an architect. He also moonlit as an alcoholic. His mom, meanwhile, was a literal practicing witch and exorcist, already a recipe for success. Zhang joined a group of roving bandits at age 20, as one does, right around the Xinhai Revolution, where the Qing dynasty was overthrown and the Republic of China was established. But in 1916, the kidneys of the nation's widely disliked monarchist leader done shat the bed, causing a power vacuum that ultimately led to what is known as the warlord era of the Republic. During this time, different regions of China were constantly shifting hands between a collection of separate military groups, all of whom were ruthless both to each other and to the people they ruled over. And through charisma, favors to the right people, and a keen sense of military pragmatism, our humble highwayman soon came to be one of these warlords. Now Zhang was quite skilled as a leader of war. After the Russian Civil War, he recruited thousands of fleeing white Russians, not beverages, but Bolshevik butchers, which bolstered his battalions and brought big bonuses to his bloodshed. He also made efficient use of armored trains, which proved to be highly cost-effective at transporting large amounts of troops and supplies. But that's not what you people care about. You want some clownage. Well, rest assured, Zhang was quite the character. Now, we all know the age-old debate between positive and negative reinforcement. On the one hand, if you treat people well, you'll probably get the same treatment back later down the line. But on the other hand, nobody's ever taught a tiger to jump through flaming hoops with just pets and temptations. And if you think that's messed up, that's because, well, yeah, it is. Circuses are fucking evil. But like all great leaders, Zhang knew how to appropriately apply both the carrot and the stick. As an example of the former, he defeated the forces of enemy General Wu Peifu largely by convincing members of his army to defect, with the promise that they could keep their original rank after switching sides, which he fulfilled. But then he was like, yeah, I don't know if my loyal men would be too happy about being outranked by strangers. Well, only one solution here. All my guys are ranking up. Problem was, so many officers were promoted that Zhang literally ran out of gold and silver to make new insignias. He was like, I gotta think about this. Went out for a smoke, looked down, hey, wait a minute, and had the rest of the emblems made out of the colorful foil found in cigarette packages. It's said that during the promotion ceremony, people would look down and notice their little star already had a rip in it before the event was even over. But hey, there's still a colonel or poobah or whatever now, they can't complain. On another occasion, he proudly announced that he would either win an upcoming battle or return home in his coffin. And though Zhang was many things, he was not a liar. So after he ended up retreating, his men paraded him through the streets in a casket while he waved and sheafed on a cigar. So you're probably wondering why they called him the dog meat general. At this point, my head was swimming with lurid fantasies about him eating dog flesh, or wearing dog flesh, or eating dog flesh. Turns out, nah, he was just real into pai gao, of which the act of playing was colloquially referred to as eating dog meat. And also because he ate dogs. He was also sometimes jokingly referred to as the three don't knows, since he didn't know how much money he had, how many concubines he had, or how many men were in his army. Well, funny, there was some truth to the nickname, which did sometimes cause issues. Some were minor. For one, he had a lot of trouble remembering the names of the 30 to 50 women of all nationalities in his harem, but he got around this by just assigning them numbers. Number 4 is real flexible, 27 makes a killer quiche, watch out for 14, she's a biter, and so forth. Other times, things got a little more dire. Later in his career, Zhang became the military governor of the province of Shandong, and while the warlord life suited him, domestic affairs were another story. Rampant human rights violations aside, the whole thing was just way poorly managed. For example, while Zhang did collect taxes on everything from theater performances to tobacco examination licenses, relatively little of his extortions went towards his war efforts or anything practical, with most of it being funneled into vanity projects and his own personal riches. So how did he fund his army? Well, for those playing at home, it's time to take a shot, because Zhang printed tens of millions of dollars worth of paper money in the form of military stamps with no reserve to back them up. Obviously, massive inflation ensued, but Zhang just said no, insisted the stamps had a 1-to-1 conversion with real money, and continued paying his men at the same rate. Fortunately for them, the invisible hand of the market is no match for the very visible fist of the soldier, because they just kick old merchant ladies' asses till they accepted the currency at face value. But unfortunately, kicking old ladies' asses can't solve everything. In the summer of 1927, Shandong was hit with a famine caused primarily by drought. At the time, many people prayed to Zhongxian, a folk deity, in an attempt to bring rain to these crusty lands. But Zhongchang, he don't get on his knees for nobody. He walked right up to the statue in Xian's temple, starts bitch slapping it, tells it to go fornicate with its sister, and then has his artillery crew fire shells straight into the sky for hours on end to show that god who he's dealing with. Sources differ on when the next rain was, but it did eventually rain, so in the end, Zongchang got the last laugh. Speaking of which, our boy was also a renowned poet. Here's a piece he wrote about that very event. The sky god is also named Zhang. Why does he make life hard for me? If it doesn't rain in 3 days, I'll demolish your temple. Then I'll have cannons bombard your mom. Truly prophetic. He's got a few other good ones too. Let me just dim the lights real quick. Yeah. This one's called Visiting Mount Tai. From afar, Mount Tai looks blackish, narrow on top and wide at the bottom. If you flipped it upside down, it would be narrow at the bottom and wide on top. I like that one a lot, because it's like he heard about metaphors without realizing they're supposed to have a second meaning. This one's titled Poem About Bastards. You tell me to do this, he tells me to do that. You are all bastards, go fuck your mother. poignant. But unlike most poets besides E. E. Cummings and Emily Dickinson, Zhang was quite well endowed. He was often referred to as General 86, as when Zhang Jr. stood up straight, he could reportedly reach the length of 86 Mexican silver dollars stacked atop one another. Given a thickness of 2.4 millimeters, this would put him at around 20.6 centimeters or 8.1 inches. That's especially impressive given that he was likely malnourished during puberty due to both poverty and the 1896 famine, you racists. I thought of a few other jokes about this, but I couldn't fit them in the narrative, so I'll just rattle them off. Should have been called the horse meat general. When he got out of the pool, he was General 12. This one just says Dong Hung Dong. You get the point. But all great things must eventually come to an end. After suffering a series of defeats at the hands of his enemies and a subsequent failed rebellion against a quickly reunifying China, Zhang was forced to run away in 1928, bringing his mom with him to Beppu, Japan. His time here was relatively uneventful, except for when he shot a former prince in the back for trying it on with one of his concubines. In court, he said the gun just happened to go off while he was pointing it at the center of the guy's mask. For some reason, they're like, nothing suspicious here. Gave him the choice between 15 days in prison or a $150 fine. He chose the latter. Zhang's story finally came to an end in 1932 when he went back to Shandong not as a conqueror but as a visitor. Unfortunately, it seems it takes people more than 4 years to get over murder because he was unceremoniously assassinated by the nephew of an officer that he had executed. All in all, Zhang left behind quite a strange legacy. Given the litany of horrible crimes that I've seemed to kind of gloss over, he's generally regarded as the stinkiest stain of an already messy portion of the tapestry that is Chinese history. The only remaining question is if one can truly separate the art from the artist. During his rule, Time magazine described him as China's basest warlord. I'll let you decide whether or not they forgot the DE. That's all for today. Till next time, I'm Salmonella, and I'm hiding in your fridge.
Hey kids, time for another riveting tale from the annals of history. Our story begins in New York in 1932 with a man named Michael Malloy. Not much was known about Malloy except for the following. He was around 60 years old, homeless, an alcoholic, Irish, and a former firefighter. So one day, a few guys were hanging out in the local speakeasy, including Tony Marino, the owner of the joint, and a couple of regulars by the names of Francis Pasqua and Daniel Kreisberg. And who else stumbles in but old Dusty McGee looking to get his morning fix? Marino's like, you know, I've had it up to here with that Michael Malloy character. He never pays his tabs, smells like the crevice behind an unwashed ear, harasses my clientele. Did you know the Hindenburg disaster didn't actually happen? Yeah, it was an inside job by the government to make Big Zeppelin look bad. Personally, I'm glad. One less industry controlled by the fucking Krauts.
The Hindenburg disaster doesn't happen for another 5 years, dumbass.
Ah, bite me. And every day, he ends up like that. So Pasqua's like, yikes, seems like quite the dilemma on your hands. Lucky for you, I've come up with the perfect solution. Let me hear it. I say we deploy a ploy to destroy that unemployed Malloy. Shut up. Anyway, go on. I'll take out a life insurance policy on him. Then we let him drink as much as he wants. Obviously he's gonna kick it. I mean, look at him. No self-control. See that? He just drew from the stockpile while there's still moves to be made on the tableau.
Oh, I like that joke.
Then, once he's dead, we get all the money for ourselves. Win-win. The first part of the plan went through without a hitch. Pasqua took out not one, but 3 policies on Malloy's life, with Joseph Murphy, a bartender at Marino's, posing as Malloy's brother and being named as the sole beneficiary. In total, the group stood to gain $3,576, which is like 66 grand in today's money. With all that in place, they begin the second part of the plan. Hey, Malloy. Good to see you, man. Say, what happened to your arm? Yeah, the other day I got in a fight with a goose. Got bit pretty bad. Been leaking pus for about a week now. But hey, I got the breadcrumbs. Okay, well anyway, guess what? Your tab now has unlimited credit. Oh, cool. Well, what's that mean? It means you can drink as much as you want and we can't stop you. Bet! Naturally, he orders shot after shot and the gang happily complies. It gets to the point where Malloy's drinking way more than should be humanly possible. But instead of dropping dead or passing out, after a while he's just like, "Hi! See ya." Within 24 hours, he's back at it, giving his liver the equivalent of a Tyson uppercut and being no worse for wear. This went on for a few days before the boys were like, alright, we need to up the ante here, and decided to replace Malloy's typical shots with wood alcohol, otherwise known as methanol. Keep in mind, as little as 4% methanol by volume is enough to make a moonshiner go blind, and just 2 shots of the pure stuff should be able to kill a man. But Malloy slammed back just as much as he normally would, totally none the wiser, and was like, still see ya. Anyway, see ya. They tried again for a few more nights, he was fine. Soaked some expired oysters in wood alcohol and fed them to him. He was fine. They gave him a sandwich made from rotten sardines and carpet tacks. Motherfucker asks for another. They were like, alright, this man's got a lead belly. There's gotta be something else we can do. So one day after he passed out, they drove him half a mile to the park, tossed him out into the snow, took off his shirt, and soaked his head and chest in water. They drive away thinking they finally done it. But when Marino clocked in at the speakeasy the next day, Malloy's already there, just hanging out, barely even sniffling. Finally they just said fuck it, ran the guy down with their buddy's cab, and backed over him again for good measure. For once, Malloy didn't show up the next day. The gang was cautiously optimistic. After all, there are 60-year-olds who bite the dust just from one wrong step in the shower, let alone the force of a half-ton of steel going 50 miles an hour. They called all the local hospitals and morgues in an attempt to find where he ended up, but they couldn't get any useful information from anyone. Lo and behold, 5 days later, the guy limps his way on in once again, with a mighty thirst and little memory of the incident. The gang debated just icing some other random drunkard, cause this one's the fucking juggernaut apparently, but they decided to try one more thing before calling it quits. After Malloy went through his usual blackout routine, they took him up to Murphy's room, stuck a gas line in his mouth, wrapped a towel around his face, and turned it on. Within an hour, Malloy finally stopped breathing. After countless attempts on his life, at long last, they were successful. However, as you might have realized, the final method of murder was a far cry from the simple elegance of the original plan, which is something they never really thought about until it was too late. Hey guys, what's poppin'? My brother, Michael Malloy, is dead. Can I have money now? Oh dear, I'm so sorry. What happened? What? Why did the man die? Pneumonia? I see. And when can we see the body exactly? So, after a quick medical examination, the men were convicted of first-degree murder and attempted fraud, and subsequently sentenced to death by electric chair. And while the executioner flipped the switch, Malloy's ghost sat in the corner, chowing down on some antifreeze and sardine soles, just laughing his ass off. Moral of the story, life is unpredictable. That's why we have insurance for it in the first place. If you ever commit fraud against life, just know that life's gonna commit a little fraud back. Till next time, I'm Salmonella, and thank you for watching.
Hey, what's up guys? Sam here. So, I've just got a couple announcements to make. I'm not gonna do any drawings because I'm fucking lazy, so just listen. First off, 10,000 subscribers. That's insane. That's crazy. I made this channel like 2 months ago, and I've already got like a town's worth of people following me. So that's fucking awesome. Thank you guys so much. Second of all, summer is coming to a close, as you all know, so unfortunately, I'm probably going to have a lot less time on my hands going forward. Recently I've been uploading like every 3 to 4 days. It's probably going to drop down to like a week, about an upload a week, if I can even manage that. So we'll see. Just don't be surprised. Third, a bunch of people were asking me about making a Patreon account. I'm not going to do that because, see, the whole thing with Patreon is like, it gets people to do a monthly regular payment to the channel, and I can't handle that. That's a lot of pressure, because like, what if I just start sucking out of nowhere? What if my shit goes to shit, and then I have all these fucking shareholders to be accountable to? So I'm not ready for that kind of commitment, you guys. Of course, if you guys really think I'm worth throwing money at, I guess I'm not going to say no, so I'm going to throw the Google Wallet tip jar function on the splash page of my channel. So if you feel like supporting the channel, you know, perhaps helping me get a less shitty mic, then go right ahead. If not, then that's awesome too. Like, just the fact that you guys are watching my channel is more than enough for me, honestly, so thank you either way. So that's all I have to say today. Hopefully I didn't sound too retarded without a script in my face. Yeah, so thank you all. Hey kids, today I'm going to talk about the different kinds of straws. So first you got straw. This was the first kind of straw to be used by humans. Many of this straw is still called straw because it was discovered before plural nouns were invented. Good for roofing, good for feeding livestock, and it can also be used to make straw men, which are good for holding back society. Straw rating, 6 out of 10. Then there's classic straws, a beverage conduit incredibly simple in form, yet highly effective in function. In fact, these devices have caused me to create a new philosophical principle. I call it Onella's straw. It's totally identical in every way to Occam's razor, except for the fact that it only applies to straws. Anyway, straw rating, 10 out of 10. Next on the food chain are bendy straws. These are proof that just bending something a little can make it that much better. Bend a breadstick, you got a pretzel. Bend a sword, you got a scimitar. Bend the rules, you got a badass. Bend the truth, you got a nomination. Bend a straw, and you've got, a slightly more convenient straw. Straw rating, bendy 10 out of 10. Next is the last straw. I don't really know what it looks like. All I know is that it makes girls never talk to me again. Straw rating, cry wank out of 10. Then you got crazy straws. In the words of Dr. Ian Malcolm, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, that they didn't stop to think if they should. This quote is frequently misattributed to having been talking about bringing dinosaurs back to life, when in reality he was talking about the invention of the crazy straw. The crazy straw is a perfect example of humanity's tendency to overdo things just to get our sick kicks. When my gaze falls upon a small child across the room at Olive Garden, gently sipping chocolate milk through a crazy straw, all I see is a misguided youth wasting his life. Straw rating, 9 out of 10. So after all this, I figured, hey, if we already got the crazy straw, we might as well double down here. So I invented something that goes beyond just crazy. I call it the Menace to Society straw. Patent pending. Straw rating, fuck you, God is dead. Out of 10. Anyway, that's all for today. Till next time, I'm Salmonella, and thank you for watching. Hey kids, today I'll be discussing the alcoholic equivalents of the various allotropes of carbon. For those of you that don't know, an allotrope is just the various forms that carbon atoms can arrange themselves into. But anyway, let's get started. So amorphous carbon is like beer. It's the first form to ever be produced by humans, likely by accident. It's also the weakest form. It has a bunch of varieties, most of which taste terrible. And you need a whole lot of it if you want to have a good cookout. Graphite is like wine. It's almost as old as amorphous carbon, having been used by humans since ancient times. However, it's significantly stronger. Up until recently, only the rich could really get much enjoyment out of it. But today, most individuals can use it if they choose, but not all varieties are equal. Diamond is like vodka. First of all, it's very strong, the strongest form that's likely to be found in the average household. It's typically valued based on its purity and clarity, though flavored varieties do exist. Though it can be manufactured right here at home, most people seem to prefer it when it's from far-off lands. And remember never to use too much of it or else you might regret it later. Graphene is like brandy. It's similar to graphite in structure, but it's put through a process to make it more pure, and as a result, it's much stronger. Fullerenes are like absinthe. It's not as mainstream as the other varieties, mostly only being used by the intellectual types. It's also claimed to have a bunch of properties not shared by any other form out there. But despite all its hype, it has little real-world application currently. Finally, carbine is like pure alcohol. Despite its simplicity, it's extremely difficult to produce with current methods, except in very small amounts. If you were to have a bunch of it, however, it would be more than twice as strong as diamonds. Hopefully, this forced analogy has been at least vaguely informational. But anyway, that's all for today. I'm Salmonella, and thank you for watching.
Hey kids, I was inspired to make this video while doing research on the ancient medicine man, Galen. Apparently, he would often do experiments on animals in order to learn more about the body, his favorite of which was the Barbary ape, due to its anatomical similarity to humans. Now when I say experiments, I don't mean push a button, get a peanut type things. I'm talking like Josef Mengele meets the plague dogs. He'd clamp their pee tubes shut just to watch their kidneys swell, cut their spinal cords in different places to see what went limp and what didn't, and squeeze their brains and make them go unconscious, to name a few. My initial reaction was, hey, that's neat, but then after some thought I was like, whoa, hold the phone. In 200 AD, you couldn't get a doorknob even. Yet, if you had the right resources, you could order a goddamn monkey. Many monkeys, in fact. By the barrelful, presumably. Alternatively, if you were born in the right place, you could be the monkey poacher, making a living wrestling up some primates with nothing more than a net, a pokey thing, a hole in the ground, and a whole lot of ambition. So I got to thinking, what other kind of animals did ancient Rome have access to? Apparently basically everything that lived in this part of the map. They were particularly fond of elephants, and it's easy to see why. Sure, elephants aren't that big of a deal to the average person today, right? You've been seeing pictures of them since you were 2, big whoop. But imagine if you were a 20-year-old man who had never seen an elephant in your life. The closest thing you've ever witnessed is like horses, maybe
some deer now and then. You get drafted, you go out to battle, you're a little scared, but you've been trained well, you're ready. Then, over the horizon, you see 20 house-sized behemoths with giant tentacles sticking out of their faces, horns longer than your body sticking out of their mouths, all screaming their weird trumpety scream, making your whole body vibrate like Mars himself is shitting on your very existence. So naturally, Rome loved to show these things off all the time, just as a display of power. Like, imagine if you were going to a speech in DC, and Trump rolls up with a pack of dragons. You'd listen to every word he said. He's got fucking dragons. That's what it was like seeing the emperor parade around with elephants back in the day. Of course, that wasn't the only use they had for imported animals. When they weren't being shown off in menageries, many of the exotic beasts brought to Rome were used in shows called venatios, which were basically like modern-day bullfights, only instead of bulls, you had whatever crazy critters the state could find. Lions, crocodiles, gazelles, whatever. Around 55 BC, Roman statesman Pompey the Great decided to organize one such event, the featured creature of which was, you guessed it, an elephant. Unfortunately, Pompey forgot a crucial Barnum and Bailey trade secret. See, you're supposed to break the elephant's spirit before the show, not during. So the boys get to poking and the thing starts freaking out, just screaming and crying, even gesturing towards the audience like it was begging for mercy. Now the crowd at this kind of event was mainly composed of dirty, bloodthirsty peasants, and even they were like, holy shit, this is messed up. I came here for a nice family-friendly disemboweling or two, but this, just deplorable. Then they all start crying and the whole thing just ends up being a huge mess. Anyway, these types of spectacles became larger and larger as time went on. It's said that Emperor Trajan once held a venatio lasting 120 days, during which some 11,000 animals were killed. They also got pretty elaborate. A lot of creativity went into keeping things fresh for the crowd. In 203 AD, they had a model of a crashed ship built inside the arena, and an assortment of 400 animals were set loose from the wreckage and then killed. That's what we should do for the next Super Bowl halftime show, honestly. Just pack every team's mascot into a decommissioned submarine. Then, when they all run out, we have the troops gun them down while the national anthem plays in the background. Anyway, the ingenuity of the people organizing these events really knew no bounds. One time they tied together a bear and a bull just to see what they'd do. Unfortunately, all that happened was the stock market crashed. Also, fun fact, one Emperor Commodus is credited with the invention of a unique crescent-shaped arrow designed specifically to decapitate ostriches and watch them run around headless for a while. Seriously, they did that so often that they needed a device to make the job easier. Sometimes, just to shake things up, they'd have the animals kill the people, which was known as damnatio ad bestias. This form of execution was typically carried out using lions, but other beasts were used as well, including dogs, bears, and at one point even an eagle, although the guy was crucified first, so it wasn't much of a fight. So, moral of the story, if you ever end up in ancient Rome and you want to see some animals, you'll still have access to almost all the same creatures we see in zoos today, and the only catch is that something has to die at the end. Till next time, I'm Salmonella, and thank you for watching.
Hey kids, today I'm going to talk about South Sudan. It's the newest country in the world, becoming fully independent just in 2011, so I'm going to explain why the state came into being and what it's like there today. So to understand why South Sudan exists, you kind of have to know a bit about Sudan as a whole. So before 1956, Sudan was under the joint control of Egypt and Britain. At the end of 1955, they gave a declaration of independence and became their own thing. The independence movement, however, was led by this guy, Ismail al-Azhari, and he was like, hey everybody, we are an Arab-oriented Muslim nation. But then like 8 million Sudanese black people were like, whoa now, hold your camels, Ishmael. Us Africans, we ain't all about your Allah. He was like, yeah, well who cares? Oh, I see. So they got into a civil war between the primarily Arab-Muslim North and the traditionally oriented African South. That went on for 16 years until finally the North's like, alright fine, you can do your thing. Like, you're still part of Sudan, but you can govern yourself for the most part. We'll take our falafels elsewhere. And that peace treaty lasted 11 years, from 1972 to 1983. Eventually, the South was like, well things aren't that bad now, but the Arabs still technically control us, so it could get worse. And I'm not in the mood for any Sharia law anytime soon, so we should probably go back to fighting. So then there was another civil war, which was basically a continuation of the first one, and that ran on from 1983 all the way to 2005, when finally the two sides made a comprehensive peace agreement, which led to South Sudan becoming totally self-governing in 2006. Then after 5 more years of fiddling around with paperwork, South Sudan became a fully fledged independent nation in 2011. So notice how there were 2 civil wars before the South gained independence. I guess you could say 2 coups make a Sudan. So, now that they finally got what they want, it must be great to live in South Sudan now, right? No, not really. It's actually just about the worst place you could ever choose to live in. Seriously, if somebody gave me the choice of moving to South Sudan or living the rest of my life with my dick inside an anthill, I'd be slathering on the honey before they even finish their sentence. Let me talk about a few reasons South Sudan sucks so bad. First, let me talk about ethnic groups. Europe, as we all know, contains a lot of ethnic groups. Scots, Serbs, Slovaks, Slovenes, Spaniards, Swedes, and those are just the big ones that start with S. There's like 100 others. The same is true with Africa. There are thousands of localized ethnic groups sprinkled all over the continent, whether or not you could tell from first glance. As such, South Sudan is home to a bunch of different peoples, each with their own languages and customs. And these groups have a long history of disagreeing with each other, like they don't get along much. So that's one thing. Second, remember how South Sudan was at war with the North for basically all of the past half a century? Well, as a result, the whole place is pretty geared for war and not much else. Their infrastructure is abysmal and they've got all these guns just lying around waiting to be shot at something. Third, South Sudan has a bunch of oil reserves in different locations around the nation. And we all know how much people like oil. Everybody wants control of whatever wells they can get. So between these three things, the whole place is basically one big whirlpool of chaos. At any given time, the South Sudan government is at war with at least 7 different armed groups from around the country, each of which is also at war with the other groups. And if that's not enough of a shitstorm, the government ended up basically splitting in two in 2013. This is what happened. So you've got the president, his name is Salva Kiir, and yes, he does actually wear a hat like this. It was a gift from George Bush, true story. And then the vice president, his name is Riek Machar. I'm probably saying those wrong, but it's fine. They don't have internet in South Sudan, so nobody can call me out here. So anyway, Salva Kiir, he's very aware of the fact that the country's in a very precarious spot at the moment. So he starts taking greater control of the government and the military, dismissing old people and installing those that he sees fit. And so Riek Machar, he's like, well, gee whiz, Salva Kiir, for someone who calls himself a president, that's pretty dictatory of you. Well, for someone who calls himself the vice president, that's pretty annoying assholey of you. Sir, all I'm saying is, I'm getting pretty sick of you and that gay hat of yours. I'm not wearing a hat. As president of South Sudan, I order you to put on a hat. Yeah, see? That hat's gay. You're wearing the exact same hat. Alright, fuck you, you're out of a job. Wait, what? Yep, you and your whole cabinet, get out. Okay, I made up the part about the hat, but the rest of that is true. Also, I should mention that Kiir and Machar come from 2 different ethnic groups. See, Kiir is a Dinka, whereas Machar is a Nuer, which only heightened the tensions between the two. So after Machar got the boot, he ended up taking a chunk of the military with him, most of which were Nuers like him, and they started a rebellion against Kiir's government. This is known as the South Sudan Civil War, and it's still going on to this day. So yeah, to sum it up, if you looked up clusterfuck in the dictionary, well, you wouldn't find anything because clusterfuck isn't a real word. But if it was, there would probably be a picture of South Sudan next to it. Seriously, this place makes Hotel Rwanda look like Hotel California. And throughout it all, there's still a bunch of hardworking individuals just trying to make a living, farming or herding or whatever. But the constant warfare makes it so the average person has to live in virtually Stone Age conditions. Which sucks, but, what can you do? So that's the story of the world's newest nation, kids. Till next time, I'm Salmonella, and thank you for watching. Hey kids, as you know, many people struggle with weight management. Usually that means they can't keep the pounds off, but if you're like me, you might struggle with the opposite problem. Seriously, this drawing is only a slight exaggeration. So, I'm gonna teach you how to turn that dank lankin into skank bankin. Quick disclaimer, I am not a nutritionist, I'm mostly talking out my ass here, but I'm reasonably sure that most of the claims I make in this video are factually correct. Alright, let's do this. Tips Tuesday! Tip number 1, eat a dumb meat. It builds muscle. You know why? 'Cause it is muscle. I'm talking the beef, the pork, the chickie. It's all good. There is no better source of dense protein out there. Tip number 2, peanut butter. Any nutritionist can tell you that a balance of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats is necessary for a healthy diet. Peanut butter is that balance. Very calorie dense as well, about 90 in each tablespoon. You're gonna wanna opt for chunk style rather than smooth, as it is closer to raw peanuts. Tip number 3, no coffee. But Sam, you say, I need the coffee for my energy. Well, guess what? That's a bunch of pussy bullshit. A man should be running on pure willpower alone. Coffee is a stimulant that makes you waste energy. It makes you poop, waste the nutrients. And it's an appetite suppressant, so you can't stuff your gut as good. Tip number 4, supplement with fats. Making spinach? That's good, it's got the nutrients. But it's also got like 6 calories total. Throw a tablespoon of butter on top of it, and suddenly you up to 106 calories. Don't go with just butter though, it might turn you into a racist. I'm Paula Deen. Instead, diversify your oils. Olive, peanut, coconut, especially coconut. Pop that shit on potato. That's the fazul. Just don't drink crude oil or else you will die. Or turn into a billionaire, but I wouldn't risk it. Tip number 5. Milk. It's like water, except better, 'cause it's got proteins and lactose. But Sam, I don't want my friends seeing